Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock. And you tried to fuck me up with the countdown again.
I did, but at least this time it was intentional.
Like I wasn't even sure, because it's like, okay, I'm hitting record, and instead it's like I am going to hit the button in space and time.
Yeah, and I kind of intentionally paused like a split second too between the end of my thing.
I spent an uncomfortable amount of time, which by that I mean like 3 seconds, being like, should I actually hit record here, or is he fucking with me?
Being stupid, right? That's when I know I'm. Yeah, that's always my goal with everybody in life, is to just fuck around so much. It's to fuck around so much that nobody knows when you're being serious. That way, it's like the boy who cried wolf. So when like the tiger gets loose and you're yelling, fucking run, there's a tiger, everybody's like, it's just Steve.
If our shit gets horribly decent due to your fuckery, you're editing it. I hope you understand that. Anyway.
I could have fun with it.
It's not fun. You drink your coffee. That's why I do it. Like, I drink coffee and I'm like half awake. But you take it seriously. I would give you a chipmunk voice. So that's all.
Although that gets really no, but it is and it isn't. It's easy to do it, but then that shortens the audio link. So then trying to mesh it up with the other track would be interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know. If you guys hear an episode one week and I've got chipmunk voice, we'll know Ben figured it out.
Yeah. This is a very special non-essential podcast. I thought there was like a lacking element of danger to what we do. So this week I have enchiladas in the oven, and I gotta finish the show within an hour, or those shits will catch on fire.
Yeah. That's a very creative way to keep me reined in, or try to.
Yeah. But I don't have a real topic this week, so it could go either way. I could be done in 10 minutes, or I could be done in an hour 30 when my bones are ash.
Well, it's interesting that you picked enchiladas, because I literally tried to make enchiladas last night, but I was going to do like the sauce from scratch and like that kind of stuff. We ended up eating Chinese stir fry because the enchiladas did not work.
Yeah.
But halfway through, I was like, well, fuck. I've got heated up rice and I've got heated up chicken. What can I do with these two things?
That's why I lean into my boy Stouffer.
Yeah.
Because I don't actually cook anymore.
Both me and Tara were in the mood for enchiladas, and it was decent stir fry. It wasn't like the best in the world, but it wasn't. When you start off cooking enchiladas and you sit down to stir fry, you fucked up somewhere pretty good. But well.
But I like frozen food, and I don't like living long, so they're a match made in heaven.
No judgment here.
So
what do you got this week?
So Creepypasta week. Hope you guys had a good Christmas. This is my Christmas gift to myself. The same thing I do every other week. And like any good creepypasta, I found it on my lunch break today when you reminded me we have a show.
Well, you could have lied and been like, oh, no, I thought we weren't doing a show this week. Because I literally was just asking,
I will never lie to the audience about how little I think about the thing we do on a weekly basis. This is a creepypasta. It's called Horror Punk. You and me, we're big punk fans, I think.
I like it. I better have a cameo from Keanu Reeves, so.
You and me are typically ones to say, fuck the establishment. We do that every week here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've done that once. The establishment gets me that's what gets me the Stouffer's enchiladas. So I have my problems, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater
here. Yeah, you and me both kind of work for the man.
That's very true. I don't like it, though, but still, fuck the established order. Take me out, too. I'm part of the problem. So yeah, let's get to it. Horror Punk, there's no author attributed to this. If we find him or her, we'll put it in the show notes. I do like to say the author's name if I can find it, but Nothing so far. It's probably always been since the beginning of time. Man wrote horror punk. It's safe to say that I've been a fan of hardcore and punk for almost 10 years now. I've listened to countless bands, been to countless shows, bought countless shirts and CDs, and met various people who I consider to be my friends. That doesn't sound punk at all.
No, I was going to say, like, I don't know, because it's not really my scene. I'm, like, kind of on the edges of it, because I've never got real into, like, the punk
Your,
stuff.
like, super spiked hair would be hilarious.
My hair is getting kind of long. I might try it, but...
No, you're kind of like me, though. Your hair, like, I've seen it when it's long in, like, photos and shit. Like, it naturally just starts twisting up and...
Yeah. Except for when I wanted to, but that's not my point. My point was going to be, I feel like if you're into that stuff, but you still use the word hardcore, you're not hardcore. Like, I don't know what it is to me about the word hardcore, but it's not hardcore.
I'm into pretty fucking hardcore shit. Like, I feel like that only works, like, you can only apply that to yourself in the context of porn. Like,
well,
like if power tools are involved, like, you get to say whatever you want. I'm calling the police, though.
In fairness, I'm not sure. I feel like all porn is kind of hardcore porn anymore. Like, I feel like any of the definition has changed, but
if you need, like, a soldering iron to get it where you need to go,
that's true.
That's hardcore to me. The rest is just pornography, you know?
Right. Anyway, hardcore punk guy for 10 years.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of buddies. However, there was this one guy that I usually met at our local shows who called himself Johnny Necrosis. And that's what made me pick this story. I just saw that name and I said, yeah, that's...
Yeah, because you say it and I'm like, I feel like I've heard that somewhere. And it's like, oh, right. Every time you think of punk, you think of a name like Johnny Necrosis.
Yeah.
Like... I don't think I've literally heard it anywhere, but it's the kind of punk name that as soon as you hear it, you're like, yeah.
But it's like you hear names like Johnny Rotten or some shit, like, you know, names like that kind of have like a punk flow to it. Necrosis has no flow to it.
Yeah.
Johnny was different from the other guys in that he, in a scene that almost everyone wears or have a few articles of black clothing black, he managed to outdo them in wearing his all-black outfit of black jeans, polished black boots, black shirt, black jacket, and dyed black hair, and a fixation for anything to do with horror, from urban legends and online stories, down to novels, slasher films, and, of course, horror punk. Johnny Necrosis, he did not invent that. Danzig did.
No. Well, I was going to say, like, you're like when you thought you were punk, he outdid you by wearing all black and having black hair. I'm like, you just described the average punk person.
Yeah, like anyone who watched the Misfits got into all that shit.
All right. Although, and by the way, too, as you were talking, I kept thinking about it because I was also stuck on that. It should be not Johnny Necrosis. You're right. No flow. It should be Ned Crosis.
Johnny Crosis.
I don't think there's
Johnny
any
Crosis.
name. I don't know if I can think of any name less punk than Ned. That's why I like it. Ned Crosis.
Floyd. Safe to say, Johnny and I bonded over our mutual interests, especially over horror movies. I'd go over to his house with his bedroom covered wall to wall with movie and band posters and watch horror movies till I've had my fill. And he seemed to enjoy my company, since there weren't many people around where he lived that appreciated his interests. It wasn't long before I realized something about Johnny, though. He had an almost myopic obsession with horror punk, and I only realized it when I took the opportunity to look through his music collection and was surprised on how focused he was towards the genre, which was pretty odd since almost everyone I knew had various albums from various bands of various genres. But Johnny's music collection was a who's who of horror punk.
I mean, so you're going to get into punk and then shame somebody for being really specific about what they like?
Having a specialty.
Yeah. I mean, I consider myself a fan of rock, but I specifically listen to accordion rock. Is that weird? I don't think so.
I think you're a freak. I always thought that was really weird in high school, though, because, like, I went the opposite way. That was where, like, my musical tastes really went all over the fucking map.
Yeah.
So like, so to see somebody, the weird thing isn't that you're into like horror punk. To me, it's that you like narrowed in on one subgenre, and it's like, to me, it's like, you know, there's a lot of music out there that's awesome. It's just never on the radio.
Yeah, I don't know. I listen to like 98% Foo Fighters. Like,
Yeah.
It's weird though, but you're right. Especially in high school, I was all, because I'd liked Foo and Nirvana back then, but I also liked Slipknot and had an ICP album and Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
A lot of bands that I'm embarrassed of now. But
yeah, you know.
I listened to some country at one point too. I mean,
don't ask me why. It was past my generation, but why in 9th grade I was listening to Godsmack? You know, just throw a brick at me. Like I didn't know what I was doing.
The station here has started playing one of the, I don't know the name of the song, but the Voodoo, that's the name of it. This Godsmack's Voodoo. They've been playing that like every hour all of a sudden. I'm like, where the fuck did this come from?
It's the official anthem of Christmas.
But I did have a roommate in college that was super obsessed with, now, and I'm older than you, so like it would have been more at the height, like when Godsmack first like kind of hit the scene. But that was his band. He loved Godsmack, and he was a really cool roommate. I wish I knew what happened to him, but we haven't been able to find him.
He got smacked by God.
He's like, it's one of those, I'm sitting here like, he was my one roommate that I really liked and I can't find him. And he's like, thank God Steve hasn't found me. He was a douche. Like, so I probably wasn't reciprocal. But he was cool.
I wish their name was Gobsmack. I
know. That's what I always want to say. And be like, yeah, Candy's awesome.
That's actually a great band name. Like, okay.
Yeah. Anyway.
Say, Johnny.
Horror punk. I don't even know really what horror punk is.
I'm hoping they'll define it, because I have no idea either.
Good. It's not just me.
Say, Johnny, I asked as I held a copy of the Misfits' Static Age, the one Misfit album all of us know. Don't you have anything else other than horror stuff, man? Nah, I don't. He shook his head. I don't know why he wrote it's NUH, which I can only deliver Southern.
He's a complicated dude. He's a
it's not on the writer here. I'm a limited actor. It's like I got two voices. It's a like normal Ben who you talk to every week, and you got Southern drawl.
But I really like that. I like that choice to go with Southerner because it seems jarring, but just because you're from this, I think I do. Just because you're from the Deep South doesn't mean you can't be a punk fan. There's got to be them out there.
It's just like, hey, you need to do a different voice, and then like my dad comes out of me. Like, no, I don't. He shook his head and looked at me cautiously, probably worried that I might drop and break it. Put it back, man. I cautiously put it back in its place and sat down next to him. It just seems odd, man. Most guys I know have lots of albums, you know, some hardcore here, some skate stuff there, some pop punk there. I like that it's like here and there, like it's all over the room. And you gotta like find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he said nervously, I'm not like most people. Hey, that's cool. I said, I'm just curious, that's all. If you like this stuff, that's cool by me. Yeah. He nodded before he turned to me. You know something? What? These guys, he stood up and waved a hand at his music collection, sing out of nothing more than what they see on horror movies and books, or simply make stuff up. Yeah, that's what most people do. What's your point?
I like that response.
Yeah, they actually wrote that. That's not me being a smartass. He turned around and looked at me intently. My point is that these guys are simply faking it, man. All they ever do is make this stuff out of thin air. I want realism, you know? The moment somebody says that, get the fuck out of the room. Like, don't.
Yeah.
I want real horror. I want these guys to tell me something from experience, you know? Some real horror. Have you wondered if their lyrics would improve if they actually did it in person and then write down exactly what they felt? This guy should look into like hardcore fucking gangster rap in the 90s. Those guys wrote exactly about what they did.
It's how a lot of them got caught, because the lyrics would literally be like, at 5:37 p.m. on 6th and Vine, I shot this guy.
There's a Key and Peele bit where a guy's like being interrogated and the guy's just like playing shit off his new single. He's like, the album's called I Shot Darnell Simmons. Like, that don't mean nothing. I shifted uncomfortably on my spot on the floor and said, dude, you're freaking me out right now. Are you kidding me, man? The reason they don't go out and do that kind of thing is because they know doing things like killing people, desecrating graves, and all that kind of crap is just plain wrong in a moral sense. I love how he's writing dialogue here.
Me too.
It's like,
and I kind of also love
this. That's a straight up theological sin, son.
I'm picturing he turned a chair backwards first, though, and sat on it like a youth pastor. But
Father Clark, let's school this fool.
And I do appreciate, because it's not wrong, but it's very much highlighting that disconnect between like being into like, because it's like, yeah, I was so into punk and fuck the man and this and that. It's like, what if we actually killed people? Whoa, that's wrong.
Yeah, and it sounds like his professor is pretending to be his best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Now you got to think about that. Sure, that would be rad as hell, but it would hurt someone's feelings.
How would they feel?
Yeah. Not to mention that you'll get into trouble for doing that kind of thing. I sat down, huffing at the inanity of his statement.
Huff.
I'm huffing because that's a very wordy paragraph.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever huffed about like a conversation. I've huffed because I've had to walk up and down stairs a couple times because I'm fat. Mm-hmm. But like,
you haven't. You clearly have a better relationship with your brother than I do. Most of our conversations end with one of us huffing. Paint, usually.
Yeah. Well.
Besides, that's the point of the whole thing, man. They're just doing it for fun, to shock and terrify people by coming up with these songs about murder and wear face paint and nail polish and pretend to be madmen and demons just for kicks, man. It's just entertainment. Johnny sat down, defeated. Yeah, I guess so. But
you out rationaled me, man. Good job.
Man, I guess you're right. I guess that's a goddamn moral conundrum.
And that's why you're the captain of the debate team.
But you know how great it would be if they were singing from experience? That's not defeated then. He just went back to his original thought.
Yeah.
I guess. I shrugged. Everything else went on as usual. We watched Evil Dead for the umpteenth time, raided the kitchen, hung out for a few hours before I went home for the night. In the following weeks, I heard and read a series of rather distressing news around town. The first news I received was that someone had broken into Allison's grave. Allison was a childhood friend of mine, beautiful on the inside and outside, and had died just the previous day from a bad heart. Her funeral was attended by almost everyone who knew her. The short period between her funeral and the break-in and the theft of her body made it especially jarring for everyone.
Yeah, except for it's smart, because that dirt hasn't had a chance to pack in yet. It's easier to dig back up. Like, I mean, so I've heard anyway. Like, fresh graves are just easier to desecrate than...
And if any of our listeners are police officers... A week later, they found her body again at her grave. It was exactly like the way they had left her, but it was obvious that she had been violated. Despite the request from her friends to have the police look into it, her parents had enough of it, and she was buried as quickly as possible. Okay, so they did it.
So somebody clearly raped my dead daughter, but I don't want to...
I just want to move on.
Yeah. But sir, there's specimen all over her. No, that just seems like a lot of work.
I know my daughter.
That moves the parents up to like suspect number 1.
Yeah, totally. I just don't want to think about it. Put her back.
I mean, I'd be sitting there sharpening my gun or however that works.
My gun. I love that image. One man wants revenge. And like doesn't know how to get it.
Yep. And then I'll write a song about it because it's from experience.
Yeah.
And it'll be rad.
Trying to forget the misfortunes that had befallen her. A fortnight later, the fucking voice of this character does not match who they are. Like,
no, but I can't wait because it's got to be leading up to them getting killed by this other guy. And we'll be like, fucking yeah, so it's about time.
In the year of our Lord, I was listening to Danzig. A fortnight later,
at 2, Johnny, were my last words.
At 2, necrosis.
Oh, sorry to spoil the ending. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
A fortnight later, there were reports of people's pets being kidnapped before they found their corpses again, and it was obvious that whoever did it had beaten them up so badly that they had succumbed to their injuries. Who the fuck is into that punk song? That's not a horror punk. That's just being a shithead.
Yeah, I kicked my neighbor's cat in the head.
Yeah, I can. Oh my god, this is a pretty good one. Succumb to their injuries. Many pet owners were so outraged by what was going on that many took to arming themselves and locking their pets indoors. Well, you should be doing that anyway.
Yeah, well, maybe
you should be arming your pets. Frankly.
Right, there you go.
I don't know if you played it. There was a game for the N64 called Jet Force Gemini, and there was a little dog in that game with like rocket turrets on its back. And I would immediately, if I thought there was a serial pet murderer, like, you better believe I would be dead because I would die in the process of giving my animals guns.
It'd be Planet of the Apes, except starting with dog, and they don't get smart.
Yeah, that's the real movie they need to make. Is like, a fucking monkey gets a pistol, and watch how they take over the world. Locking their pets indoors, and some even requested for increased police patrols to find the suspect. All while this is happening, I was wondering what Johnny would make of this. Part of me wondered if he was actually responsible for it, but I quickly dismissed it, because I'm an idiot. Literally only one person in town fucking interested in goddamn crime sprees, but it couldn't be
literally
him.
Just said that it would be cool if somebody did it and wrote about it.
Sure, Johnny might absolutely be the only suspect that makes sense, but no. Sure, Johnny might have an almost unhealthy obsession with horror. Sometimes he got a bit too immersed in his fantasy and talked about wanting to do this and that horrible thing. But that was just empty talk. School shootings taught us that. Nobody ever means what they say.
Right. And sure, he had a large collection of knives and bats and guns and all that stuff. But surely he's just a collector.
I love how fucking this main character is...
We're joking, but by the end we're going to find out it wasn't Johnny. It was the rapping granny from Wedding Singer. She needed some fresh new lyrics because people were getting tired of her bit.
She was like, you know what, Johnny, you're right. But that was just empty talk, if you ask me. Everyone had that kind of thing in their mind, but they're smart and reasonable enough not to do it. Johnny's no different than the rest of them. The unnerving part, though, was that every time I called him during that period, it would simply go to voicemail, which was unlike him. Usually he would answer or return my calls. I even tried visiting him a few times, but each time he was either away or wouldn't open the door. I even asked his parents about it. He moved out a few years ago, and they admitted they had trouble getting in touch with him lately. Although confused and worried by what was going on, nothing prepared us for what happened next. One morning, as I turned on my computer and checked Facebook, I learned that someone had been stabbed and disemboweled. From what I can gather, he was leaving a pub after closing hours, was led to a dark, isolated part of town, and was stabbed a few times, and after he had died, the perpetrator then got to work, disemboweling the corpse and removing the guts.
I couldn't believe Jack the Ripper was back.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it definitely was not Johnny Necrosis.
Yeah. Have you ever imagined what would happen if Jack the Ripper wrote songs, dude? That'd be so fucking good because there'd be real horror. Some of them claim they have pictures of the dead body, but I hesitated and decided not to view them. I've had enough of horror and madness in this town. I couldn't even deal with more bad news, let alone seeing pictures of a disemboweled corpse. A few days after that...
I thought about calling the police and giving the tip about Johnny, but I had enough of it. I didn't want to think about it.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
A few days after that, as I was checking my mail, I noticed an A4-sized envelope jammed into my mail inbox and retrieved it. All it said was that it was for me, with no stamps or any return address, so the mailer might have simply jammed it into my inbox and left. Yeah, dude, because the post office needs postage.
Well, yeah, that would be a tip too, right?
No, maybe they threw it from their window and it gently glided in. I took the envelope to my room, set it on my desk, and opened it. Inside the envelope was several pages worth of paper, with doodles of skulls and tombstones and death scenarios by the sides of the pages. The first page was a black piece of paper, typical, I know, with some cut-and-paste collage of blood and skeletons by the sides of the page, and the words, Plan 9, Descend into Darkness, which confirmed two things. First, this was definitely Johnny's handiwork, and secondly, he probably has some material ready for an EP or something, hence the cover art and pages. And
third, he had tried 8 plans already, and they all failed.
This is why none of those other horror bands did any of this shit that Johnny was wondering about. It's like way too much work. Just write the album.
Right.
And the fact that everything was handmade confirmed who it was, since he was never big on using a computer for any of his artistic endeavors. He said it felt fake and not as sincere as something one would do with their own hands. I picked up the first handwritten page and read through it. It was titled Liberation and had lyrics like, As I stood by the corner watching them leave, watching them, who claimed they loved you, but when you needed them the most, they left you, one at a time, until there's the two of us left. As I stood over your earthen prison, I can hear you beckoning for me, begging to be saved. That's a shitty punk song.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna, murder people to write about it, at least, write well.
Yeah, you needed to fucking kill people. Well, could you imagine if you were really emo? People write that shit all the time.
Right, better than that.
You don't have to disembowel anybody to get there. Just feel sad a little bit.
Right.
Well, shit. Johnny did have some talent as a lyricist, apparently. Who knew? As I read the whole thing, I felt a strange feeling of deja vu with what I was reading here. Hadn't I heard of this before? The digging into the grave, the breaking of the coffin with a crowbar, and carrying off her body into the night? It's almost like what happened to Allison. No shit.
This guy is the world. Yeah, he's not destined for the. Well, maybe he is.
What is
the
fucking polar opposite of the spectrum from Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah.
You're just a guaranteed 10 steps behind everything happening around you. But I was just overthinking things. God. He has already acknowledged this is fucking Johnny behind this shit.
Yeah, I mean, at least give Johnny the chance to confront him, and Johnny be like, "Nah, I was just reading about it from what was in the papers, man."
God,
and then you'd be like, "Oh, well, maybe he does have me fooled."
He's a video game NPC. He's just must have been my imagination. God damn. It was possible that he had heard what had happened and simply imagined doing it himself. I then read the next page titled Embrace. It appeared to be the sequel to Liberation. Do songs have sequels? It's just a track list.
Some, yeah. I mean, I've heard of bands doing it. They're always bands that I think are overly pretentious.
I mean, there's I've heard songs where there's a part 1 and then a part 2 and shit.
Yeah,
but you can't just say track 1, track 2 is a sequel to track 1.
Yeah, usually, like you said, part 1 and part 2. And I guess I normally to me comes off as pretentious, but I think Reznor's done it on a couple albums, and I never will criticize everything that Reznor does. I like Trent Reznor.
I don't I'm not like throwing shots, but a lot of great artists are pretentious. Like that's
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. He might be. I don't know. I don't know his personality. I like his music, I should say.
yeah. I don't.
But
I'm not gonna make a judgment. I don't really listen to it, but you know, it wouldn't surprise me. I feel like something has to be wrong with you to be successful. A little bit, which
he definitely has to be
explains
weird.
why I'm perfectly fine.
To get into music, which is not my forte. Nothing's my forte. The thing I like about Nine Inch Nails and Reznor, who is basically Nine Inch Nails, is he's got that like ability that I think Beck has too, where you just take noise and make like can turn like anything into music, and I admire that so much.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, he's got to be weird as shit. I think
there's got to be like eccentricities and shit.
Right. And it may make him like a jerk. It may not. I don't know. I don't know anything about him.
I haven't heard anything
personally
that made me think he was like a jerk, but
I've never heard anybody say anything bad about him.
I feel like there is a point, and I've made music before too, and like it's something. In no way is it's like successful music, but it's fun to do, and it's a creative process. And there are points where your mind just sort of, you go up your own ass a little bit, and like the songs have a little more meaning to you than they'll have to anyone else, and you overthink them and shit. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, as long as like you keep perspective and you're like, you know, yeah, that meant a lot to me, but I'm not going to like, if people are like, hey, that's a good track, you know, like you don't even understand.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the only way I'll ever criticize you as a musician is if you sing about stuff that you haven't actually done, because then you're a poser.
Yeah, that's bullshit. All right, and Johnny Necrosis called you on it.
Still can't get over that name.
It's so good. This is actually like one of my. It's really funny, but it's one of my favorite stories we've brought. It's very lighthearted. You can tell there's a sense of humor in it a little bit. You don't come up with Johnny Necrosis and not have a laugh.
Well, and like you said
it.
too, they've used like every cliche punk thing too. Like, I do get kind of the impression that the author probably does like punk.
Yeah.
But and I think intentionally picked, like you said, like the misfits, like out of all the you're trying to paint this like picture of this guy that's into this really niche thing, and you're like, I'm going to pick like the one band that if you've never listened to punks, you probably still heard of.
I feel like you have to though, like, because it's the only way you're going to have any window into horror punk, because both of us had no fucking idea, but we both know who the misfits are. Okay. It appeared to be the sequel to Liberation, where the character embraced his dead lover. I don't feel like going into full detail, but basically in this song, well, the character had sex with the body he had liberated from the grave. So it is a sequel. And it had lyrics like how beautiful her pale skin was, how smooth it felt. That's an R&B thing. That's horror R&B. Like, how different his warmth of his skin felt against the coldness of hers, and it got rather graphic at moments. I then noticed something else. In the lyrics, it mentioned biting her in the inner thighs and ears, and how, when he knew the time was up, he took a lock of her hair and reluctantly returned her back to her grave. I've heard rumors that when they examined Allison's body, they found bite marks on her ears and inner thighs, and someone had taken a lock of her hair.
I feel like you would never catch the lock of hair unless you like the lock of hair is a fistful.
Yeah.
Right. The bite marks just make it even funnier that they're like, oh, but the parents are like, no, don't investigate. There's clear evidence here though. No, don't worry about it.
Just put her back. Despite my growing level of unease, I quickly dismissed it, reasoning that Johnny might have heard of the same rumors himself and thought it would go well with the story. You are a fool. You deserve whatever Johnny Necrosis does to you.
I mean,
imagine if this was my best friend. I would absolutely know it was like, okay, yeah, he's a fucking killer. That's
what I was gonna say. I've got friends.
I wouldn't snitch on him. I would call him up. I would be like, look, if I know this, the cops definitely know this. Don't You gotta run, man.
That's what I was saying. I could see maybe not going straight to the police if it's somebody I've known, because all my friends I'm thinking of right now, if all of a sudden something like this came out and you're like, huh, I could see like wrestling with it. They couldn't possibly have done
but
this.
you got to do it in code, like write a counter song, like, fuck cops, they're coming for you. Like in parentheses. All right, so I might have heard of the same. Johnny might have heard the same rumors himself and thought it would go well with the story. I then read the next page, "Cries of the Small Ones." It was basically a story about how the protagonist took out his wrath on small, innocent creatures. The lyrics were basically something like this: "As I entered the encasement, I looked at the creature's eyes, the look of innocence, looking for mercy. Oh, how I hated that! As I stamped on their frail bodies and hearing their cries, brought a rush of blood to my head. Oh, how dizzy I felt, dizzy with elation, dizzy with joy, and I wanted more." Okay, this was quickly becoming unnerving. Yeah, now. Song 3.
It sounds to, and the way he's slowly piecing this together, I think he's reading like one verse a day. Like,
yeah.
In fairness, they haven't like with the time, but he's like.
To be fair, my friend left me an envelope with what I thought was bad poetry. That's about how I would get through it. It was like about one a day. Yeah, I'm working through it, man. I'll finish it probably this week. Okay, this was quickly becoming unnerving. I felt like excusing myself and saying he probably imagined himself as Godzilla attacking some Japanese town or something, but I'd be lying to myself. No fucking shit. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, he literally just went on a thing about how it'd be cool to do the stuff and then write about it. Like,
yeah, like, goddamn pattern recognition, please. Like, it's how our species survived. Like, these lyrics were basically what Johnny had aspired to achieve, to write the perfect horror lyrics based on true experience, which is a shame because the lyrics aren't that great.
No, they sound like like you said, they sound like any other song from.
It's just proof that you don't need to do this.
Yeah, it turns out you can imagine doing things, and it's basically the same result.
All those crimes, he did it, just so he could see what it felt like. At this point, I was not sure whether I should just send the whole thing to the police or to continue. To my surprise, I chose the latter. This page titled "The Hunt" basically described the murder of a man he had been tracking for a few days, before taking his chance and murdering and disemboweling him. The lyrics were, of course, hair-raising. It detailed how he watched as the man got around his daily routine, finding that one spot that he could use to take advantage of, and once he found it, he took it, with the lyrics describing how he felt doing it. The blade slid through the ribs, nice and smooth. Crimson blood started spurting out of him, his life ending at every single drop. His voice was gone, but his eyes begged for mercy. I cut through his skin, saw his life leaving his body. The sounds from his throat simply made me smile, and as his eyes turned white, I savored his blood from the wound. I put the page down. Fucking hell,
Those didn't
Johnny.
Even fucking rhyme, Johnny.
Fuck
what the hell?
I put the page down. Fucking hell, Johnny. You suck. No.
Have you ever heard of a thing called cadence? Come on.
Jesus Christ, there's no rhythm at all. Fucking hell, Johnny, you lunatic, I thought to myself. All this effort for a 5-song EP? As I rubbed my face...
So it'd be better if it was a full 12 track
Jesus,
album.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, at least make a debut. As I rubbed my face, I noticed there was another page left inside the package. I wondered what it might be. Maybe it's an explanation, like he was basically telling me that he got the lyrics from rumors and the news that he hoped that I liked it.
It's a song called "I'm Standing Right Behind You, Dumbass."
Yeah, here I come.
Here we go.
I'm coming up the hallway. Turned out it was another page full of lyrics called "The Proposal." And you two were wed. As I read through it, a chill ran through my spine. It told in perfect detail about how he had sent a beautiful proposal to a prospective partner and waited in the darkness as the partner went through my carefully worded letters and seeing how moved he was from the beauty of my creation. But still, he remained unconvinced. but I shall persuade him about the beauty of our potential partnership. As I put the page down, unnerved by the content, I heard someone walking up the stairs towards my room. I tried to move, but I sat on the floor, frozen in terror. Johnny emerged by my bedroom door, carrying a kitchen knife with one hand and a crazed smile on his face. "So, buddy," he asked, "do you want to start a band with me? You can play guitar."
How did he know that he finished reading it just then if he was down the hall?
Oh.
Like, that's some damn good timing. Like, he timed out. He's like, this is how long the average person
He knew how long the songs
read.
were going to be.
I mean, I guess he could have had like a camera, like a hidden camera or something in there, but...
Or he's just watching. Like, I don't
That's
know.
true.
You know?
And then he's peeking through the door, and then when he finished, he ran back down the hall so that he could loudly walk up the hall. Like, he's got to hear me coming. That's for the effect. Or fuck, I forgot the kitchen knife. Let me run back real quick and grab it. That's why I heard him walking.
Or he just like, he has a little speaker in there. Like when you get to the last page, it's just time to go. Oh! And he's like, "Oh, good. Now it's time." Anyway, it ends with that line. "You could play guitar." That's the end. It's over.
The last line should be, "But I didn't know how."
But I didn't know how I got fucking got.
I've never played guitar
Johnny
in my life.
never threw a knife faster into my throat.
But Johnny, I only know the kazoo.
But Johnny, I want to sing.
Well, he didn't murder him, which was where I thought that was going.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of almost a scarier twist. Like I give him kudos for that. Like
I actually really liked the ending there of like,
that's way more
song.
psychopathic. Like hey, do you want to join? Because it's like now you're stuck in the situation where it's like you either say yes or
you're
worry
fucked.
about him.
Yeah, or you're another
right.
song, man.
So that was way cooler of an ending than I was thinking it was going to have.
Yeah.
And overall, it was actually, as much as we kept interrupting it to make fun of it.
And very believable to me. Like, it's kind of a cliffhanger, but it's a genuine, like, this character is very clueless, and I doubt the strength of his convictions. So, he might be a guitarist for a murder band. You know, like, I could see that playing out.
Yeah. And then if we're talking about like, these crimes are happening, but he's like not putting two and two together, there would be some denial, I think, for a lot of us and I don't know if it specifically gives a time frame. If like all this stuff happened within a couple days of each other, it would kind of hit you like really fast instead of like, this thing happened in a few weeks. Although it did say that like the pets, it sounded like that took a little time because neighbors were starting to arm themselves and stuff. But
I've watched too many fucking documentaries and shit though, where it's like shit like that's going down and you can't reach your weird friend who wants to do this shit. It's like you gotta know.
At the very least, you'd think you would reach out to somebody, even if you don't like the police, like somebody else, and be like, "Hey, I'm concerned."
Yeah.
Like somebody should probably look into this guy and make sure everything's okay. But
yeah. But yeah, great story. To whoever the author is, thank you for getting me out of work this week. Mm-hmm. It's always appreciated.
Judging by my count, it's not a countdown, it's a count up timer on this audio. Your enchiladas.
I got 20 minutes.
Oh, fuck, that's too long to wait for enchiladas.
It's actually, that's just to take the lid off. It's got another fucking... like 5 minutes after that, it's like 80 minutes total.
That's the problem with those things is it's like, I think they actually take longer than making enchiladas from scratch would, but it's just less work. So it's like, and I'm with you. I often opt for the less work path, but then you're sitting there for like an hour and a half smelling the shit that smells awesome cooking. And it's like, fuck, I can't eat yet.
Yeah. And normally you would be right. And normally I try to have something ready in like 20 minutes. Which is pretty much DiGiorno pizzas. But today I got pizza for lunch at work, so I wasn't too hungry. I can wait. I'll survive.
Yeah.
I'm willing to sacrifice for the good of this show.
Yeah, that's funny.
Until I need a week off, and then we announce it last minute.
Saying that, and we had a late lunch, so it was like almost time for me to come downstairs to start the show. And we hadn't eaten yet, which for me and Tara is not a big deal, but we all have a 3-year-old. And so it's like, we probably should get some dinner. So Tara just ran out and picked up burgers. And me,
Johnny Necrosis didn't get fed on time when he was a kid.
Yeah, that's right. And so me being the fat ass burger lover that I am, like actually put the burger like in the fridge to eat later, which is never near as good, but it's like, I'm not hungry yet. I'm not going to eat. So
who would be the other band members? You got like Johnny Necrosis, like Frankie Dialysis.
Rick Mortis.
Gunther Coffin.
Yeah, I like to think that they're all Johnny something. And their band's just called The Johnnies.
Die Johnny Die.
The worst is the bass player. Johnny partially decomposed.
Johnny, does this look infected to you? They're cool people. So yeah, that's the story this week. That's the show this week. I don't really have anything more to ramble about.
No, I'm kind of eager to get off here and start writing some horror punk.
Yeah, I think we all got that creative bug up our ass. Johnny bug up the ass.
My horror punk would be songs about like being asked to work after hours and that kind of stuff. That's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, totally. It's like, Johnny, come in on Saturday, please. Fuck no.
I know you don't deal with like the general public, but my favorite like horror song would be the phone call that goes, "What time do you guys close?" Because that always means I'm coming in at the time that you guys close. And it's like, nuts.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for listening. And yeah, we'll be back next time. Have a happy
We'll be
New
back
Year.
next year. Ha ha ha.
We'll see you next year.
That's a joke that never grows old.
Dumbass. You think I'm going to take a whole year off, but I'm actually only taking a week off.
We're not even taking the week off.
We're not taking a week off. It'll just be a week, yeah.
Yeah. I'm so funny.
You're an idiot. You bought it. You thought I was going to be back in 2024.
The best part is I'm making fun of that horrible, stupid line, but I've used it before. Probably used it today on a client. But because that's just like the House of Weather thing, where it's just so fucking inane and like expected that you say it and nobody means anything. You just like, yeah.
Well, like my last job, we worked online grocery. And my coworker, who was one of the funniest fucking people I ever met, like, it's just one of those people just naturally funny, not trying to be. But, like, we would have customers pick up their groceries, and they would always hit us with that line at the end of the year. And, like, the bitterness he had about it. So, and, like, he didn't hide it at all. Like, he was like, "Oh, yeah, I'll see you next year." Fucking good one. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I appreciate honesty in people.
Yeah.
It's like the person that we have an older client that I said, "Oh, are you ready for the holidays?" As I was like, just filling space while I'm trying to like get her stuff pulled up, and she's in her like 70s, and she goes, "Oh, I don't have anybody to celebrate holidays with." It's like, cool. I appreciate that response because that puts all the awkwardness back on me, and I love you for that. That's great. Like,
yeah, that is a boomerang greeting coming back at you.
And like just the way she said it was perfect too, because it wasn't like overly sarcastic and bitter, but it was just matter of factly like, now the ball's in your court, fucko. What are you gonna say next?
I like it, but I like it more. And I'm guilty of this sometimes if I'm just like too stressed out to like engage in pleasantries. It's like, "Oh, are you excited for this?" No. It's like, and they have to deal with that. It's just like, no.
I had to stop at the store for some stuff on the way home after work, which was a fucking nightmare because it's a combination of 3 days before Christmas, and we're supposed to have it's supposed to be really bad ice, weather, wind, cold storm. It's one of those that, of course, they're making out to be like, oh, it's the end of the world, which It sounds like it is going to be really bad, but it might, whatever. But it's a perfect storm of everybody run to the fucking grocery store, right? And I was just picking up like 4 things, but I was in line for like a half hour. And the poor kid, I say kid, he was probably mid-20s, checking people out, the cashier. There was like one guy ahead of, well, the guy ahead of me was standing there, and he kept trying to engage with the guy, like, "Oh, you have to go out of town to see family," and the guy's like, "This is what you just said." The guy was like, "No," he's like, "My family's all from here," and the kid was just like, "Oh," and he's like, "Oh, well, if the ice storm comes through that we're supposed to get, do you get tomorrow off, or are you gonna have to go into work?" And the guy's just like, "I work nights, so I'll already be at work." And just stop like, and this poor kid, for whatever reason, was like desperate to have a conversation with this guy. And the guy was doing exactly what you said. He was just like, no. Yeah. Like, and he wasn't being like a huge dick about it, but he was coming across like, I'm better than you and I don't really want to talk to you. and it wasn't like he was busy on his phone or anything. He was just standing there. He just clearly didn't want to talk to this kid. And I think it really deflated the guy, because then when I was up next, he didn't say like 2 words to me. It's like, yeah.
It sucks. Like that, like having to engage in pleasantries is really annoying.
I felt bad for the kid because he seemed to genuinely be trying to be nice. Like, I've had that happen to me, and it's fine because I don't actually fucking want to talk to you. So if you don't want to talk,
totally
fine and good. Like, I'm going to try to come across as nice and engagement because that's my job. But I really don't care if you don't want to engage. That's fine. But this poor kid, I think, was completely deflated by this guy. It was kind of interesting to watch. Like, I wish I could have filmed it. But anyway, I'll let you prepare for
phase 2 of the Ben Enchilada universe.
Which is also the name of our album that we're going to be working on.
Fucking Iron Man dies in this one too. Don't get your hopes up. I bet there's somebody who will claim to be a hardcore Marvel fan and then complain about a spoiler like that. Is like, hey, I haven't seen it yet. And the joke's on you. I haven't seen it at all, and I know what happens.
I was gonna say that. I was like, you can literally tell me anything happens in any of those movies. I know like, oh yeah, okay.
I know the fucking California Raisin wins a little bit, but then loses big. That's the only reason there's 2 of those movies.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. See you next time. Thanks for listening.
Catch you on the flippity flip.
Catch you on the tombstone. We're horror punk now.